Hello, I'm Dave, co-founder of Social Shifters. This is the Social Shifters podcast. In this podcast, I'll be speaking to incredible young people from all over the world, leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, all tackling social and environmental issues that matter to them most. Listen in to hear top tips from some of the most incredible young minds on the planet. Hello, Charles. I'm joined today by my good friend Charles here, who is the winner of our Global Climate Award. So we're going to be chatting with Charles today about his idea, his interests and passions, and why he started his project Rethread Africa. And we're going to try and understand a little bit about your concept, Charles, and what you think kind of made your application successful this year. So welcome and congratulations. Well done.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be talking about our journey, building Rethread Africa and the engagement we had with social shifters and the incredible learning opportunity that was. Just sharing a little bit about what inspires us or what moves us and just hoping that in a way or two it gets to inspire someone to take that next action, right? Yeah. So super excited to be here.
Cool. It's really great to have you here, Charles. And look, how does it feel to have won the Climate Award this year?
Yeah. So we are still taking it in. It's been beyond our wild expectations or imagination, because just thinking about the journey and the sheer number of problem solvers who came out to answer the call for this challenge, I think speaks into what we are building, and sort of in as much as we were building and there were progress from our end, there was a little bit of luck involved. So we're still trying to take it in at this very moment and just plan what's the next move, or how do we move forward from here. Because with this award comes more responsibility from our end. And at this point, we are sort of like the ambassadors for the next 12 months. We sort of will be the ambassadors for the climate challenge for social shifters. So just showing that, yes, this is what we want and this is what we've been able to do is still something that we are taking in. So yeah, it's been exciting. We are still taking it in right now.
Yeah, that's it. With great power comes great responsibility, Charles. But yeah, look, we're delighted to have seen you come through the competition and to win. And this competition in this category is always stiff. And there was hundreds and hundreds of applications from all over the world. So yeah, you I think to your credit, I don't think it was luck. I think it was down to your idea being solid and your presentation and pitch being of a really high standard. And look, maybe we can get into that. Can you explain to people watching who are Rethread Africa, and what is your kind of your big idea?
Nice. I love the term big idea. So at its core, Rethread Africa is a material technology startup, right? And so what that means is we are trying to look at natural solutions, or what nature provides as an alternative to the use of plastic-based synthetics. So particularly at this very moment, we are focused more in the fashion space, so textiles particularly. And we're trying, our big, hairy, ambitious goal is to replace 15% of polyester over the next decade. Now that's a huge goal to have. So we are starting small, and right now what we are doing is we are looking at how can we turn agricultural waste into sustainable and biodegradable fabric that could be used for different applications, from making the t-shirts like the cool social shifters t-shirt that you're putting on right now, David, to making stuff like shoes or clothes or bags and stuff like that. So that's essentially what we are doing. We are a team of, started out as a university project, so we are spinning it off. We're a team of students from the University of Nairobi. And so that's a little bit about Rethread Africa and what we're trying to do. I'd be happy to delve deeper into that as the conversation continues.
Yeah, well, let's go a little bit deeper, because I think the process is really what's interesting and innovative, and how you're working with local communities, how you're working with local farmers. Can you talk a little bit to how you are producing these sustainable fabrics?
Yeah, I'd love to. And that touches a little bit about of my personal story, right? So I come from a small farming community on the southern parts of the Kenya-Tanzanian border. And growing up, we depended on agriculture as a way of getting our livelihood or just putting food on the table, right? But with the climate crisis, I've seen firsthand the realities of my community changing. Because right now rainfall is unpredictable, it's few. We are just coming from a 40-year from one of the worst drought in 40 years, and what that means for smallholder farmers like people in my community is that their livelihoods are threatened. They can't be able to provide for their families or their communities. And when I came to university, or when I joined college, I got to learn more and realize that the clothes we are putting on had absolutely everything to do with this, right? So because the fashion industry is the second largest polluter, and it's fueled by fast fashion and synthetic fibers. So what that means is that on one end, we are having an industry that's built on a linear model that's continually churning out tons and tons of clothes. But on the other hand, this industry is destroying the livelihoods of farmers who have absolutely nothing to do with this. So the thought process was, how could we work with these farmers who at this very moment are feeling the impact or the negative effects of the climate crisis, and work with them to co-create solutions that could benefit the fashion industry on a larger scale, right? And when we ask nature for these solutions, we realize that a lot of natural materials or plant matter have the fibers that we need to make clothes. Because at their core, textile or fabric or clothes are just fibers or threads. But we could get these threads from corn husks, we could get these threads from sugarcane bagasse, we could get these threads from water hyacinths, so a bunch of other things. So we looked back to my community particularly, and my community farms a lot of corn, because corn is the most grown crop globally and in Africa also. So we looked at corn, and what surprised us was the fact that we only make use of 15% of the corn plant, or when we harvest it, right? But 85% of the corn plant, so that's the stalk, the husk, and all that plant material goes into waste. But what is now waste is very, very valuable in the sense that we have a lot of fibers in this waste. And how that is being used presently is, number one, farmers either have to burn them when they have large tracts of land where they can't dispose all of them naturally. So farmers are forced to burn them, which emits more harmful gases, or farmers leave them on the farm to rot. For most of the farmers in my particular community, the process of leaving these corn husks to rot after harvest is not the most sustainable way, because then it emits methane gas, which is more harmful than CO2 and stuff like that. So if you look at the whole value chain, so we're having farmers who are having a resource that is presently going to waste, but you could use this resource to sort of help fashion become more sustainable. So that was the whole idea and the whole concept. So we went to corn husk, we tried a bunch of variations or iterations, and right now we've been able to turn corn husk into threads, and you're looking at turning those threads into fabric, right? So that's the whole process of what inspired us, how we are able to interlink fashion and what farmers are going through, and now take what's a waste resource from farmers and turn it into a valuable material for the fashion industry. So yes, we started with corn husk, but we are also experimenting with a couple of other materials. So anything from pineapple leaves to water hyacinth and stuff like that. But our primary goal is to, number one, use material that's waste. Number two, work with smallholder farmers or communities that are presently marginalized. And then number three is just build better products. Because the beautiful thing or the bad thing with coming from Africa is we will rarely buy stuff because they are sustainable. At the end of the day, the alternatives need to be better or as good as existing material, right? So right now it's our fabrics need to be better than polyester, or they need to be as good as polyester. So that informed our third principle of building, is just building better products in a better way. So yeah, so that's been the journey, and that's what we do on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah, it's an incredible idea. You're taking what would be waste product, but you're purchasing that, so you're actually generating a line of income that local farmers wouldn't otherwise have, and those farmers are often struggling for income. But you're taking waste material that would otherwise have been burnt, producing more harmful gases, and you have a process and a method to turn that, in this case, corn husk, but it sounds like there are other materials you could work with, pineapple leaves, etc., to create a new type of fiber which can be made into, well, I'm guessing various items of clothing. So it's an incredible idea with the potential to really to scale in your kind of local community. But can we talk for a little bit just about the issue in the first place? So I think, we see a lot of applications and ideas in and around more sustainable forms of fashion, combating what many people call fast fashion. Why is this such an issue, and why is the fashion industry not changing of its own accord? What's driving this? Why is this necessary?
I think I can speak more to why is this necessary at this very moment. For the conversation of why the fashion industry is taking its time to change, that's a whole different ballpark or area. I'm yet to get to that point, but I think more importantly is the fact that we are now realizing that the way our day-to-day life has a very big impact to the climate crisis or the climate conversation, right? And right now, even though there's one of our co-founders likes to say this, we can all drive electric vehicles, we can all travel, we can all fly on hydrogen-powered airplanes, but if we continue to wear clothes that are made from fossil fuels, then you're playing a zero-sum game in the fight against the climate, against climate change. And the reason and the reason for that is because the fashion industry is a huge promoter of the fossil industry, right? Because they're intertwined together right now. So from everything from the way we source for these materials to how we produce them, to how we use them and the end of life is wrong at its core, right? We are using a lot of resources to extract the fossil fuels, first of all. And then we are making clothes, we're making material that makes clothes that are meant to be worn in the short term. And these clothes are meant to be discarded. There was no thought process into the end of life for these clothes, because for the brands that are pushing these clothes, it's all about how can we make more sales faster, right? And technology has only served to make that worse over the last 20 years, because we are now producing twice as much clothes as we did a couple of years back, and you are putting them on, or we are using them half the time that we use them in the same time frame. So I think we are now getting to the point where we are realizing that clothes have everything to do with this, and for people like us on the other side, we are thinking that, but also clothes can change the world, and clothes can be used as a force for good, right? Because if you look at the stats around the fashion industry and the unsustainable nature of the fashion industry, you'll see that fashion is the second largest pollutant to the environment. And if they are starting that if fashion was a country, it will be the third largest polluter to our environment, right? So these kind of facts now start making us rethink how we have to solve the climate crisis, because we only have 7 years to the deadline that we put ourselves on with regards to achieving the SDGs. So this is the right time for change, and we are seeing consumers also on the other hand demanding for more sustainable materials. People continually need to know where their clothes came from, what was the process of making the materials, and what will happen to the end of life of their clothes. Because again, there was a report released in February by the Changing Market Foundation that paints a picture of how slowly but surely Nairobi is turning into a textile graveyard, right? And that sadly that's not only the case for Nairobi. You look at Nairobi, you look at Accra, you look at deserts in Chile, and all of this are pointing to the fact that we are having a system that might have started out really, really well in terms of access for clothes and people who couldn't afford them. But right now, that system has broken at some point, because of the materials we are using and the end of life of these materials. So we are rethinking the whole paradigm shift in the fashion industry, and that paints a picture, because that tells the story of why now is the time, because we only have 7 years. 7 years might look like a lot of time, but if you think about it, 7 years are only 7 more global innovation challenges by social shifters. There are only 7 more Happy New Years or 7 more Christmas. So it's a very short period of time, and we need to like accelerate whatever actions we're having, however small or big they be, towards the climate action. So that's why I think right now is the right time, and why fashion essentially should be the force to drive us into the next shift, right?
Yeah, very well put, Charles. So yeah, it's a really kind of interesting and accurate reflection, I think, of where we are at the moment and what is the crux of the issue here. And I think something that stood out to me in what you just said is really that juxtaposition, that or balance between consumers who, and a level of awareness of the issues, so that consumers really drive the agenda by making certain purchasing decisions. But alongside that, you need the producers and manufacturers and the products in place in order to match any demand from the consumer end. So, and that's where you come in. And so look, I'm really interested to hear what is next for Fabrica and for Rethread Africa. Where do you go from this big win?
Yeah. So a little backstory. So Fabrica is the material you're making from blending corn husk and sugarcane bagasse, just to make that clear. And Rethread Africa is the startup. So what next for us at this point? It's we need our fabrics to be in the hands of the fashion designers and creatives, right, across the continent. We are having conversations with designers from 3 key fashion markets in Africa. So that's Nairobi, Kigali, and Accra. And we've already gotten to the point that we need to produce the fabric and get them to their hands. So that we are picturing mid-April to be to the time there when we can have this when we can have Fabrica into the hands of these designers, and probably have clothing lines made from Fabrica, so sustainable clothing lines made from Fabrica. So what next for us at this point is essentially it's doubling down on production. So just getting the fabric out there and get people to interact with the fabric, because the only way that we can be sure that we've made a fabric that is as good or better than polyester is when people who use is when creatives and consumers can be able to touch, feel, experiment, and experience this material, right? So over the last couple of months, we've been in R&D, in labs, and working with different partners to try and measure the quality or the properties of our material. But we can do so much in terms of measuring the quantities in lab settings. But the true test of whether the material will be successful is getting it into the hands of people who use it on a day-to-day basis. So right now we're trying to figure out how we can get that process rolling, how we can get the fabric into the hands of the people who need it most, and also as you clearly identified earlier, for us it's not about getting the waste from farmers and making fabric, but it's about creating value from this waste, right? Apologies. So right now we're focusing on how can we onboard more farmers, and just telling them that on top of the revenue you're getting from harvesting and selling your corn, you could also be selling your waste to us, and we could create more value doing that. So just building that community as we go on will be really, really important over the next couple of months for us, and just getting the fabric. So hopefully the next time we have this kind of conversation, I'll be putting on a shirt made from Fabrica, and probably I could send some to social shifters, and who knows, we could make t-shirts, cool t-shirts made from Fabrica. Yeah, so like that's the thought process right now.
I would very much like that, Charles. If we can have our next batch of Social Shifters t-shirts made from Fabrica, that would make me a very happy human. And we just to say that we do always try to find sustainable fabrics and sources when we do print. But yeah, to have a t-shirt made by one of our award winners would be yeah, quite special. So I hope we can get to that point in the next 6 months. It sounds as if, you know, we've talked a little bit about the fashion industry on the whole, and fast fashion being the problem. That's obviously driven by consumers and fed by the kind of global manufacturing and fashion machine. But it sounds like you're not looking to sort of actively work against that. It looks like you're really looking to work with or within the current fashion industries to get your fabrics into the hands of consumers, but through some, yes, is it some major labels or producers? Is that the way that you want to create sort of large scale change?
Yeah. So yeah, that's absolutely right. I think so. For us, when we're starting out, there was a school of thought that we could decide to go against the fashion industry and sort of like have that friction of a relationship going forward, or we could try to slowly but surely introduce change into the fashion industry, right? So and how we think about it is, I think at this point we have very limited time. Again, 7 years only, right? So that means that more collaborations will be better into achieving a larger impact or large scale impact, right? So what that means for us at this moment is, instead of calling out the fashion industry, yes, we understand that the fashion industry is unsustainable. Yes, you're cognizant of the fact that you are overproducing. Yes, you're cognizant of the fact that market dynamics are different, right? And there's the larger scale of doing things and stuff like that. But for us, it was all about what was it that we could do in our small space or with our small project that could have a ripple effect. And right now, we come from a country or a region where it is the end of life for materials or for fabrics. So instead of us complaining that we're having a lot of plastic textile waste ending up in Nairobi or in Africa, it was about, yes, there are plastic synthetics, but we're having an alternative. We could change the end of life for these clothes. So what if 3-5 years from now, we could be getting, yes, pre-loved clothes coming into Kenya or coming into sub-Saharan Africa, but then once these clothes have been worn out, they could be taken back to farmlands and they could regenerate farmlands. So it was more of, how can we use the existing infrastructure or the existing system to introduce change? Because you look at the whole textile invention time cycle or lifespan, it takes a lot of years from research and development to the time when we're having a fabric that's out there that everybody uses, right? So petrochemicals right now have over 100 years of research and development. So going against an industry that's over 100 years old and it's inculcated into every aspect of what we do will be a very difficult fight to have. So it was just about being strategic as to what we can do and what could have more impact. That said, we're cognizant of the fact that once we've been able to prove to large fashion brands and creatives that we're having a material that's sustainable, it has the qualities you're looking for, and yes, we already have people who are using it and who've tried it for a couple of years, then we could now start seeing the cascading effects of larger brands taking on this material and using it. So yeah, so I think it's less of competing or going against the existing system and more of, how can we introduce a new sustainable way of doing things into this industry as we look on to what will be the ripple effect of that, right? Because we start with sustainable materials, and next it could be, because we're having sustainable materials that have better properties, have better qualities, we could now make less clothes. You could buy less clothes than you already used to, because materials have been meant to, the fabrica, for example, is stronger, it could last longer. So there's no need of constantly replacing the material. So yes, so the first step is introducing a new sustainable material, and then we can have the larger conversations of how do we reduce the amount produced, how do we create a system for where it ends up at its end of life and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's more of collaboration and less of having a friction with the industry, because again, we're just a bunch of university students. So going up against industry that are more than 100 years old, could be not one of the most intelligent fights you need to choose. Yeah. So yeah.
No, I would agree, and I think collaboration is really the key word there, isn't it? It's going to take enormous effort and collaboration in every sector, in every corner of the planet to do this in 7 years' time. You mentioned something that kind of I thought was interesting that we haven't really covered in your concept, which is this idea of, what is sustainability and what does that mean in terms of fashion and this fabric. Is just briefly, I guess, to touch on this, is your fabric designed to last longer? Is it designed so that people are wearing and able to keep a garment for longer, or is it more important that it's made from materials which are biodegradable, so that at their end of life they are not? Well, what happens at the end of a garment made from Fabrica?
Yeah. So I think we sort of had these conversations with the team earlier, and it's not enough to just produce from sustainable sources, because if you produce from sustainable sources and you produce a fabric that's only meant to be worn once or twice and discarded, then again it's a zero-sum game. It doesn't matter how sustainable the raw material is, or how impressive the production process is. If it's meant to be worn for the short term, then really we are not impacting the climate in a positive way. It might be a small thing to do. It might be good for storytelling, but then it doesn't have long-term impacts, right? So the reason number one we went into trying to blend the material was because of this very reason. So trying to make material that's not only that it's not only sourced from sustainable materials, it's not only produced in a circular, more efficient or sustainable manner, but it's meant to last longer. And for us, all these aspects were equally important, and the end of life was as a result of the raw material. So really, in as much as our end of life is that our fabric could be taken back to the farmland, it will compost, that's a nice to have, but that's not something we set out to do. What we set out to do was use what is primarily waste, make products in a better way, and then make them to last longer and be of better quality, right? So that now that means that from the test we've been running, we are seeing a material that we are yet to get to the point where it can be an absolute substitute for polyester in terms of the durability of lasting longer. And that's not a bad thing entirely, because essentially polyester has had over 100 years of research and development going into it, right? So we are cognizant of the fact that we'll need more time to get to the point where polyester is. But right now, we're seeing very promising results in terms of the fabric lasting longer, the number of time we could wash it, how it's responding to dyeing properties, and it's very, very promising. We are still doing more research into what could be the best blend to arrive at the perfect spot of a material that is sustainable and lasts longer and could decompose. Because with these blends, again, comes a very interesting question or conversation of, we could have a very good material, but with the wrong kind of blend, it could just sit on the farmlands for 1,000 years without decomposing, and it would also be a zero-sum game. So it's just thinking around what could be the best blend that enables us to achieve most of what we are set out to achieve. And yeah, so I think lasting longer for us boils down to a third principle of building, which is building better products in a better way. So it's not just about the raw material, it's not just about the production process, but it's about the use of the material itself. How long can it be used? How seamless does it infuse into existing systems, and how does it sort of paint the picture of from raw material to end of life? What's involved in between was really important to us. So that's why we think it's equally important to not only just think about the end of life, but also the use of the material itself, because most of the material or most of the utility of the material will be in the use, right? Because again, if you could make material from polyester and you could wear the same clothes for 10, 20 years, then it will be a better material than making fabrics from corn husk and wearing it only once and then decomposing it. So that utility ratio is very, very important to us. Yeah.
It's an interesting and complex dilemma, I think, isn't it? You know, it really does kind of boggle the mind. And you've mentioned your team a number of times, and I'm wondering how important is your team to Rethread Africa to getting to where you have gotten to at this point, and how important will they be, you know, moving forward, and why? You know, I'd imagine there's multi-disciplines there, and different perspectives on this issue, different expertises. Would I be right in assuming those things? And yeah, tell me a little bit about the team and the importance of the team and getting you to where you've gotten to now.
Yeah. So I think the reason why I think team is really important is because for us, so a little backstory. I love stories. I think at this point you realize that. So in high school, I wasn't the best student when it came to sciences, right? So chemistry, biology, or physics. But then I'm an idea person, and I like interacting with people. I like seeing the bigger dream or the bigger vision. And what we are building right now, Rethread is a science. It is a science-driven startup, right? It's a material tech. At its core, it's chemistry and biology and biotechnology. So it's not my strongest suit. So I think the team to us plays a key role because we sort of complement each other, and more than just complement each other. We were all friends at different levels or capacities, right? So I remember us having the conversation around building in the fashion industry with my co-founder Mitesh a while back. And Mitesh has been in innovation competitions. He's been there, he's done it, right? He was running a marketing tech startup before we came together to build Rethread. And for him at that very moment, it was all about how do we use innovation as a tool for social good, right? Because he's an innovator, he's an idea person. So and then me, I'm a dreams kind of person. So I look at what could this be 10, 15 years from now? And then we met Vincent. So Vincent was a childhood friend of mine. And Vincent is a science person. Like he understands things I couldn't understand in school completely. So he'll be a very good friend of my science teacher in high school. So for him, it was all about the research and the development and what goes into just corn husk, right? So what makes corn husk an ideal material? What makes pineapple leaves an ideal material or an ideal feedstock? So and then we met Noreen, and Noreen knows how to speak to people. So in terms of marketing, so what this means, if you look across the board in terms of our team, it's we have very different skills, and standing alone, I can't tell you the nitty-gritties of what's the chemical process of what you are doing. I can't tell you the nitty-gritties of the financial bits of what builds our business, right? But then as we work together as a team, that comes out clearly and it is more informed. So just realizing that you can't do it all, you don't know it all. And the beautiful thing with our team is we are very, very quick to point out, this is what I think, but I understand that I'm not an expert in that field. What do you think with your expertise and with your knowledge? So that's very, very good and very, very key for us. And also just being friends as a bare minimum. Because more than just building Rethread Africa, we go to the same uni and we have a lot of interactions together, right? So just having conversations of around life and around what we think the world should be and how we think our project Rethread plays into that was very, very important to us. So I can't overstate the importance of the team that's building Rethread. I'm just here speaking to you as a single entity, but then there are people behind me who are like making this possible and who are making Rethread come to life every single day, and who've made it their mission in life over the next couple of years to build Rethread, right? So I think that's very, very important for people to like believe in your dream and believe in the mission you're trying to build, and yeah, and just being there to build it to the long run was very, very important for me. And I can't, again, I think this is where I put it sort of like an advice or my I'll just say advice, right? I think building a team needs to be like the topmost priority you have once you've thought of your idea or once you need to think of an idea. Just getting people who believe in the same values you believe in. They might not have the skill set that you need at that very moment, but skill sets could be learned. People grow into roles, but just believing in the dream or having the same sort of value principles was really, really important for us at the very beginning. So yeah, so I think team for me is very, very huge. So it's top there. Other than just building a solution that could impact community, it's building it to the right set of people around you. Yeah. So team, and I think team also goes beyond just the co-founding team and just your mentors and people who help you along the journey. And probably we'll get into that. But yeah, so when I talk about mentors, it's people who are there with you, people who could see the dream from the other angle or the other version, and we're just there to guide you in terms of what should be done at that very moment. So yeah, so team is very, very crucial.
Yeah, and I think that's helpful for people who are at a slightly earlier stage than you and your team, Charles, to understand that having the right group of people around you. And I think you also mentioned, through mentoring, the right people at the right time. It doesn't necessarily mean that all of those people, an extended team, if you want to call them that, will be with you all the way through the journey, but the right people at the right time. And of course, yeah, that core team being crucially important. But you mentioned friends and friendship a number of times during your description there, and I wonder, might be interesting for people to understand. I mean, working with friends does sound like a dream, but what is the reality of working with friends? I'm sure there's good and there's also challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I need to make this clear. I didn't have a bunch of friends, and then from my friends I chose you and you will be my co-founders, or we'll build this thing together. I think in terms of team, being in the right circles or being in the right networks exposes you to people who you share the same values or the same ambitions in life with, right? And then from that, you could pick up conversations and you could build the relationship around that. So other than just being friends, I'm not a big believer in the school of thought that you must be friends for you to build a perfect team. I believe that you must have the same set of values or principles or guiding principles, right, for you to build a team. But then being friends sort of helps along the way in terms of just falling back into that net. Because as a team, you will disagree a lot of times, right? Because sometimes you think you're very, very right, they think they're very, very right, and sort of it's very hard to break that sort of conflict. But then just falling back to the fact that, you know what, at the end of the day, we are friends at its core. That sort of helps you find a way around conflicts or disagreements. And they're not a wrong thing to have. I think that's also very, very important. You will disagree with your team members, with your co-founders a lot of times, and it's not a wrong thing to disagree. At the end of the day, just figure out what is the best way forward, and you will never always be right. So sort of forming friendships with your team members is very, very crucial. I don't necessarily think that people must be your friends for you to build a startup. I think you need to have the same values. After that, sort of try and build relationships around those values before you move on into forming a team together. Because at the end of the day, so co-founding is sort of like a marriage, right? And you don't move into or you don't get into a relationship with your partner because essentially you are friends, because you have very many friends across your life before you get into that point. So I think just having the same set of values and principles and then morphing that into a relationship, a professional relationship, and then you could now move on into just having conversations of, this is what I'm thinking of building, what do you think about that? You need, but it's very, very crucial for you to sort of work on a friendship relationship once you decide, I'm going to work with these guys, because that's very, very important for you to be friends as you are building. It's not just enough to be co-founders and have a professional relationship, but just having that, can I check up on you, how you are doing? Because at some points we have deadlines, but then when you talk about our deadlines and our deliverables as friends, and just figuring what's going on with probably with Mitesh, what's going on with Vincent, what's going on with Noreen, really helps in terms of building that awareness of where do we stand as a team, what the relationship you're having. So yeah, so having friends as co-founders is a good thing, but don't just pick your friends to be co-founders. Share values, share principles, have a guiding that have a shared mission or vision, and then you can now build on that. Yeah,
I think that's good advice, Charles, and look, helpful also for people to understand not just the successes within a project or a team, but also some of the challenges. And so just to wrap up this episode of our podcast, which I wanted to sort of draw on two final questions and see if I can just get some kind of concise advice from you for people listening who are perhaps at an earlier stage and considering setting up a project or a campaign or a venture to tackle an issue that they see in their community. So two final questions. One is around challenges and one is around advice that you might give. What's the single biggest challenge that you've had on your journey as let's call you a social entrepreneur so far?
I think one, I'll start with the challenges, right? So I think one of the greatest challenges, without overthinking or overstating it, will be you need to be the first person to buy into your idea. You need to believe in your idea more than anybody else, because nobody else will believe in it more than you do, right? So, and then find a way of marrying the problem you're trying to solve, because the idea might change. The idea will change across the project life, but the problem you are solving should be your guiding principle, should be your North Star. So marry the problem you are solving, and then just believe in yourself and your abilities more than anybody else will, because nobody else will, right? So that's number one. Number two is So number I don't know if that's an advice or a challenge, because I think.
Well, hold on, Charles. It was just one. I can only let you go with one, and I think that is a really good one to finish on. But yeah, if you could go back and give your former self advice, let's go back 1 year, let's go back 2 years at most, knowing where you are now and what you now know. Is there one thing that you would tell your former self, other than to believe in yourself and your idea? I think that's excellent advice. But is there anything that you would tell your former self?
There will never be a perfect time. There will never be perfect conditions or perfect situations. You will never know. You'll never know everything. So just start. Start where you are. Start with what you have, but just start. And get into the right networks, meet the right people, but just start. I think that will be it. Start as early as you can. Yeah,
I think that's great advice, Charles, and a really good place to leave the Social Shifters podcast for today. So just wanted to say a massive thank you for joining me, for sharing your story, for sharing your vision, for sharing your ideas, and sharing some of your advice with people listening. Well done for getting this far and for winning our Global Climate Challenge this year, and really just best of luck moving forward.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for the whole journey. I think it's been a journey all the way since last year to this point. We are very, very appreciative of the process that we went through, the mentorship, the coaching, and just getting that feedback from be it the judges across the board or the mentorship program. So thank you. It was exciting sharing our story, and we're always available on social media. Just reach out to us in case of anything. We'd be happy to help in any way, shape, or form that we can. So thank you. And if you're building, just start.
If you want to learn more about social shifters and how we can help you to impact the social or environmental issues that matter to you most, subscribe to our YouTube channel or find us on Instagram and Spotify.